Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Western Adventure, Jeff-Chandler billed as Tex Chandler, and Wade Crosby as Cherokee, who got no billing on this show. That was a funny thing about Bruce Ellis. He only billed his starring people, never gave the supporting cast any... well, I guess later on they did give Wade Crosby a little recognition. Frontier Town. Back from October 24th, 1952, the story of the Poisoned Waterhole.
Frontier Town, the saga of the Roaring West. Frontier Town. El Paso, Cheyenne, Calgary, Tombstone. Frontier Town. Here is the adventurous story of the early West, the tamed and the untamed, from the Pecos to Powder River, Dodge City to Poker Flat. These are the towns they fought to live in and lived to fight for, teeming crucibles of pioneer freedom. Frontier Town!
Ever hear of a cow town called Dos Rios? Well, don't feel bad if you haven't. It's just one of those frontier towns, roistering and noisy, perched in one of the lushest and richest valleys below the Continental Divide. Me, I'm Chad Remington, the town's only lawyer. But like everyone else, I've got my own ranch with the typical well-fed, slab-sided herd of cattle for which our valley is so famous. And just because these cattle are valuable, well, it gives some men ideas. And that makes plenty of business and trouble for a saddle-stop lawyer. It wasn't too long ago that I was riding in toward Dos Rios from my spread. Cherokee O'Bannon, he runs the town livery stable now that we've talked him out of peddling his genuine Indian rattlesnake oil. Cherokee was riding with me as we cut across some open range trying to get to Dos Rios before sundown. Hey, look at those Herefords, will you, Cherokee? Someday with a few more head, I might even be able to burn up my law books and retire.
And I use the term at the twinge of conscience, you must have bats in your belfry. Looking at a bunch of cows like that. For shame.
What have I done now to offend your artistic integrity?
What has he done now, he says? My boy, you've been casting sultry, longing looks at a bunch of blank-faced cows, when half that emotion spent on a proper female woman would return to you tenfold. Nay, 100-fold.
Oh, don't you go biblical on me, you old reprobate. And something else. Unless a man has a few head of good beef, he can't afford to cast long, lingering looks at a woman.
Chad, my boy, your total lack of sophistication and experience hurts me deeply. A man who has some money in his jeans doesn't need to bother with the distaff side. He can go out and woo old John Barleycorn.
Cherokee, the older you get, the more unregenerate you become. Your total lack of appreciation for a herd of cattle is something that I... Hey, Cherokee, rein up.
Slow there, girl.
Oh, boy. Easy.
What in Billy Blue Blazes happened to you, Chad?
Oh, you see that water hole just ahead of us?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that a tin can lying next to it, lying on its side?
Yeah. Unless my optics deceive me, that's an empty 5-gallon can. But what about it? It's a lead pipe cinch. It didn't contain old spiritus fumenti. That's drinking liquor to you.
No, it's a lead pipe cinch. It didn't contain anything that pleasant. I got an awful feeling it did contain 5 gallons of enough stuff to poison every steer that drank out of that water hole.
Why, if I ever catch the pussy-footin' polecat that did that, I'll darn well destroy him. Come on, girl, get up.
I'd like to get my hands on the buzzard who did this. Putting poison in a water hole.
I must admit it's incomprehensible even to me. Why would someone want to poison a lot of dumb, defenseless cows?
I don't know, but with their stock poisoned off, how many ranchers around here could pay their debts?
You mean to say someone deliberately? By the great God Pan, Chad, this is the most nefarious bit of chicanery I've ever heard of.
It certainly is.
Now, just a minute. I heard you say just the other day that not over half a dozen ranchers in this whole valley owe a mortgage to the bank. That old sourball Ripley, who owns the bank, forced most of them to pay up a year ago last spring. So what debts could they have?
Plenty. Ever since Ripley shut off most of the credit, which absorbed most of the cash folks had on hand, everyone's been buying at Parker's store because Lisha Parker's been willing to let his bills run.
Lisha Parker? If you mean to insinuate Lisha Parker's mixed up in this cattle poisoning, you and I are coming to fisticuffs. Why, that old gentleman is so honest, it makes me blush. Yes, it does.
Oh, calm down, Cherokee. Calm down. This has nothing to do with Lisha. But legally, if the ranchers can't pay their debts, he could go to court, get judgment, and take them all over lock, stock, and barrel in liquidation of his claims.
But if you say Lisha isn't mixed up in it, shucks, Chad, I think you're putting your money on the nose of the wrong horse.
Yeah, I'm not making any bets on this race, because I got a notion it's been fixed. I'm blame well gonna find out if I can before the sun sets today. If I sounded like a boastful kid, well, that's just the way it turned out. Because after talking to Lisha and Sarah Parker, not only didn't I find anything before sundown, but I didn't find out anything for the best part of a week. Waterholes continued to be poisoned. Strangers drifted in and out of town. Even the sheriff couldn't find out a thing that'd help. And then, best I can piece it together, another stranger arrived in town. The stranger. The stranger who wasn't too strange to the handful of gunslicks who'd been hanging around town. They got together in the Silver Boot Saloon.
Hey, bartender, let's have another bottle.
Hi, Lefty. The boys said you were over here.
Pull up a chair and rest your frame, Krug. If you got your work done, you must be tired. Bring another glass with that bottle.
I got my work done all right. You know me, boss.
Yeah, I sure do. That's why I shipped you up here ahead of me. Any trouble?
Oh, shucks, no. Oh, there's been a Jasper in town snooping around. A lawyer named Chad Remington. But he ain't found out a thing, Lefty, believe me.
Yeah, he'd better not find out anything if he wants to go on practicing law. Because I'll get him just the way I'm going to get Parker's store.
Now, look, Lefty, you ain't ever been here in Dos Rios before. Me and the boys have been here for more'n a week. And I'm telling you, that there Lisha Parker's a stubborn old goat. He'll never sell.
No? Well, let's just suppose that Parker won't. Don't you think his widow will?
Widow?
That's what I said, widow. And if Parker is as crusty an old goat as you say he is, it shouldn't be too hard.
Shouldn't be a... Lefty, I'm sorry, I just don't get you.
Well, just like you said, Parker's got a nasty temper, hasn't he?
Well, yeah.
You're going over to that store and talk Parker into an argument. You understand? Poor Parker, with that temper of his, gets sore and grabs for his gun. That's all, mister. He grabs for his gun, only you outdraw him.
Hey, you really got something there. Don't let nobody tell me Lefty Slaughter ain't got brains.
Yeah? Well, instead of wasting your time trying to butter me up, you better be getting over to Parker's store, because once he's out of the way, it's still going to take time before I'm the owner of all the choicest ranches in the Dos Rios Valley. Now, go on. I'm getting so anxious, my tongue's hanging out.
Lisha? Oh, Lisha.
Yes, sir? Oh, want me to put that bold calico up on the shelf for you?
Would you please, Lisha? You're a dear.
After 42 years of what we've been through together, sir, certainly doesn't take a... Well, looks like we got a new customer coming in.
Howdy.
Howdy.
I'd like a pound of sugar.
Pound of sugar. Yes, sir. Right here.
I said I wanted a pound.
Well, sure, I heard you. This is a pound sack.
You aiming on calling me a liar?
Now, look here, mister. I didn't ask you to come into my store.
But I come in, and I'm not going to have some thieving crook like you give me a half pound and claim it's a pound.
You get out of here. Doggone you. Turn around and clear out of my place before I blast you.
Lisha, don't.
Hey, you bald-headed old goat. Nobody's putting me out of no place.
I'll show you who to
watch out. Lisha! Lisha.
Hold it, you. Get away from that door.
Watch him, Cherokee.
That's all right, Chad.
Did he do the shooting, Mrs. Parker?
He killed my husband.
Yeah? Well, I only shot in self-defense.
Is that the truth, Mrs. Parker?
Yes. I tried to stop him, but Lisha did draw first.
Well, now are you satisfied?
I can't say that I'm satisfied, but I guess the sheriff won't hold you in the face of that evidence.
Lisha. Oh, Lisha, why did you do it?
I can't tell you how sorry I am I didn't get here 2 seconds earlier.
Oh, that's all right, Chad. Oh, Lisha. Lisha.
Just saying how sorry I am. I know it isn't going to bring your husband back, but there's still an account to be squared up, and I'm hoping you'll let me square it. Come on, Cherokee. We're going to escort this buzzard down to the sheriff. It was a foregone conclusion that the sheriff had released Krug, but not before we found out that he had something to do with the stranger who'd arrived in town, Lefty Slaughter. Not knowing Slaughter, I decided to go down to the saloon where he was hanging out and size him up just in case.
Come on, honey, one more drink. And I'll give you some more folding money to lose at Faro.
Oh, excuse me, but the bartender pointed you out to me as Lefty Slaughter.
Yeah. Something I can do for you, my friend?
If I didn't have something else on my mind, Slaughter, I'd ask you to apologize for calling me a friend.
Asking for an apology and getting one are two different things.
Well, maybe I've been lucky, but I generally get what I ask for.
And maybe that's because you make it your business to ask the wrong people.
Yeah, maybe. But I didn't come here to ask you anything. I came here to tell you something.
You don't say.
Elisha Parker was just shot down in cold blood. And I thought you'd want to know. I'm making it my business to find out why.
Oh? Well, I never had the pleasure of meeting this Mr. Parker. But if he was a friend of yours, I can't say that I'm exactly sorry.
Well, you may be sorry. Next time you or any of your gun hands try to finish off what you've started.
And now, if you're through, I'm sure you'll excuse me so I can start enjoying myself.
Why, sure, Mr. Slaughter. Enjoy everything while you can. Because if you keep up like I think you've started, legally or otherwise, I'm going to help see that you enjoy the next 50 years of your life rotting away in jail.
October 24th, 1952, Frontier Town on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you can get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that's MediShare. You get both. The typical family saves $500 a month switching to MediShare. And that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. It's because MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge PPO network, so yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. If you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number you need. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station, October 24th, 1952, Frontier Town.
Guess I sounded like a boastful kid all over again. I mean, going in and deliberately rubbing Lefty Slaughter the wrong way. But I found until you've rubbed the fur, you can't tell if the animal you've got is a house cat or a polecat. Sometimes they're both dangerous, but you trap them different ways. Well, I found out in short order that Slaughter was as cold and cocky as they come. Knowing that, there was nothing more I could find out until such time as he chose to make his next move. So Cherokee and I sat for 4 more days in my office up above Cherokee's livery stable, looking out the window and watching the entire street. Then late the afternoon of the 5th day, Cherokee turned away from the window suddenly.
Chad, look there. That double-dyed, dirty gunslinger who terminated Elisha Parker's mortal existence is walking down the street with Lefty Slaughter.
He was walking with him. Now Krug's turned off into the saloon and... Hey, you see what Slaughter's doing? He's heading straight for Mrs. Parker's store.
Well, if that's the case, and it certainly seems to be, then what are we doing loitering about this legal loggia?
You're right, Cherokee. So grab your hat or your gun or both, and let's be finding out what business Slaughter might have with Mrs. Parker.
Some of the boys over at the hotel told me about the misfortune you had, Mrs. Parker. I mean about your husband.
Well, certainly mighty kind of a stranger to come over and pay his sympathies.
And believe me, sympathy is just what made me drop in today. You see, I got to thinking about how difficult it might be for a woman like you to try and run a store alone.
Yes. I'm afraid it really takes a man's mind to run a business right.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And since I came to Dos Rios looking for a business to go into myself, and with you now probably wanting to sell...
Oh, I wasn't thinking of selling out, Mr. Slaughter.
Well, now, I know this may sound kind of sudden, but I'm willing to pay you a fair price. All cash. Say $2,000.
$2,000? Why, we've got more than $20,000 just owing us on the books.
Oh, sure, books. With their cattle dying off like flies, that $20,000 isn't worth the ink it took to write it. Well, I don't aim to argue with a woman, but I'm a fair man. And once I make up my mind, I don't let anyone change it.
Well, now, isn't that too bad? Now, you just listen to me.
Mrs. Parker, you'd better do the listening. I've got $3,000 here in cash, so suppose you sit down and start writing out that bill of sale.
Why, if I were a man, I'd take that shotgun off the wall.
Mrs. Parker. Hello, Slaughter.
What are you doing here? Butting in again?
Nope. But since you're determined to stay in Dos Rios, I'm just being neighborly. And seeing as you want to spend your money, I thought I'd suggest to Mrs. Parker that she accommodate you.
Accommodate him? Why, what do you mean, Chad?
Well, since you haven't done much cash business this year, I thought maybe I could help Mr. Slaughter spend some of that cash he's got on him right here. Since he's so all-fired anxious to buy something.
Chad, I don't want any of his money, not any of it.
Now, who said it was his money? I'd hate to think where it came from.
If you could think at all, you'd keep your nose out of this.
What do you mean, think? If he could just smell, he'd keep his nose out of your business. Reach to the high heaven.
Why, you loudmouth.
Chad, stop it. You wrecked my whole store.
Don't worry about your store, Mrs. Parker. You able to get up, Cherokee?
Once I get some of these picks and shovels out of my hair.
Slaughter, that was a mistake hitting Cherokee. Bad mistake for you. But at that, I guess you wouldn't have hit him if he hadn't been 20 years older than you are.
Yeah? Who says so?
I say so. I'm about your age. Why didn't you hit me? Oh, I'm not too gentlemanly to hit you.
That's it, Chad. Beat the brains out of the blighter.
Not much satisfaction to that, Cherokee. He won't hit back while I'm facing him.
Well, if I had my way, I'd christen his thick skull with a few bottles of my Indian rattlesnake oil, applied with vigor.
I'll see both of you again.
I'm sure you will, but you're not leaving yet. Remember I was going to help you spend some of your hard-earned money here with Mrs. Parker? Cherokee, load some of those picks and shovels you knocked over into Mr. Slaughter's arms.
My boy, you've got a most imaginative idea.
Well, what does he want with picks and shovels, Chad?
From what I've heard, he's fixing to dig his own grave.
Here you are. 3 picks, 4 shovels.
Mm-hmm.
Hold out your arms, you insult of the human race.
You're going to pay for this?
Oh, no, wrong again, Slaughter. You're going to pay for this. 3 picks and 4 shovels will be, well, in round numbers, let's say $50. And Cherokee, since we always aim to help the customer, just peel one of those bills off Mr. Slaughter's bankroll.
Just one?
Just one.
You're never going to live a life of ease like that, Chad.
Now, let's see. You can carry a little more. Just about room for a bolt of that calico. And it's just the right color for Slaughter, too. Yellow.
Yellow? Well,
it'll make a nice yellow shroud for that grave he's digging for himself.
Yeah, with all the money he's got left, it's too bad we can't sell him a headstone. He's going to be needing that soon, I think.
You're going to be laughing on the other side of your face before I'm through with you.
For the time being, you're through with me now. So, adios, Slaughter. And in consideration of your $100 purchase this morning, Mr. O'Bannon will be glad to open the door for you as you go out.
Goodbye, thank you. And be sure not to come in again.
Chad, I just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, I'm afraid your thanks are a little premature.
Why, what do you mean?
Chad thinks he knows what that crook is up to.
Seems to me Lefty Slaughter found out that almost every rancher in the valley owes you money. He's decided to cripple them, force you to sell out to him, and then take over what ranches he's wanted for the money they owe the store.
How terrible. But why did you let him walk out of here? Why didn't you have him arrested?
Well, because so far he's been too smart to involve himself. He has his hired gun thugs do his dirty work. Until we get them, Slaughter's still in the clear.
Oh, I see. But isn't there anything you can do to stop them before they murder someone else like Lasha?
What I'd like to do is create a situation which may force Slaughter into doing something he hadn't planned on. Some crime he hadn't figured in advance. And then catch him red-handed. I think we can, Mrs. Parker, if you'll give me your permission to call a meeting of all the ranchers who owe you money right here at your store.
Quiet, please.
Suppose you stop acting as if you're running this whole show, Remington. Let Sarah Parker do her own talking.
Now, there's no talking for me to do. I've sold the store and all of its assets to Chad Remington, and from now on, you'll have to do business with him.
Go on and grumble if you want, but it isn't going to do any good. You owe this store money, and I want cash on the barrelhead. Or if I don't get it, I'm going to court and take judgments against every one of you.
Remington, your poor father must be turning over in his grave. How do you expect us to raise money now?
You can raise money. All you got to do is drive your cattle to market and sell it off.
Why, it's almost 2 months till shipping time.
Instead of standing around here arguing, I'm advising you to get together and start a drive with your herds up to the nearest railhead. I'm only giving you 5 days to be back with cash. So if you know what's good for you, you'll be on your way by sunrise tomorrow morning.
Are you loco, Krug? Remington buying out Mrs. Parker's store?
Boss, I was there myself with the whole crowd, and he told them to get out and drive their cattle to market and be back with the money in 5 days, or else he was taking over every ranch in the valley.
Well. There's nothing crookeder than a crooked lawyer.
And the conclusion of Frontier Town, October 24th, 1952, follows these messages here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now the conclusion of Frontier Town, October 24th, 1952, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
The funny part is, what he's doing is playing right into our hands.
Playing into our...
Sure, what happens? Those ranchers start driving their cattle to market. You and me and the rest of the boys are laying for them. We get the cattle. Remington don't get the money, and the ranches he takes over are worth nothing.
Well, I'll be... That smart monkey is playing into our hands. What good are them ranches without cattle on them?
No good. Krug, you go round up the boys. A thing like this calls for a real celebration.
Lefty thought I was dumb, all right. The Dos Rios ranchers knew I was a crook. All I was sure of was I was taking a long, wild chance and hoping it would pay off. Next morning, just as I told them to, the ranchers joined up in one big trail drive and started for San Jacinto. From where we were perched, Cherokee, the sheriff, the posse, and I, we could see the cattle spread out along the trail almost as far as the eye could reach. I guess we waited more than an hour. Every man Jack's eyes shaded from the morning sun, scanning the pass below us, waiting, praying for some sign of trouble. And finally it came. A single shot. And then in the next instant, it sounded like it must have that day at Gettysburg. We waited for a moment to make sure we were right. And then the sheriff unholstered his gun and turned to me.
You sure were right, Chad. Look at them rustlers pour out of that canyon.
There must be 1 million of them. 2 million, maybe.
Yeah. All right, you posse men. Unholster those 45s and let's get you riding.
Cut down through that arroyo. That way we can get between them and the cattle.
And right in front of those rustlers' bullets. Say, Chad, haven't I got time for a little drink of my rattlesnake oil or something?
All you got time to do is squeeze the trigger. Come on, let's go.
Pussyfooting polecats is turning around and heading for the woods.
Oh, it's that yellow-spined skunk, Slaughter.
Hey, Sheriff, you keep after the rest of them. Slaughter's trying to sneak away. I'm going to get him.
All right, Chad. All right, come on, men. And don't waste lead shooting over their heads.
All right, get around there, fella. Slaughter's got a quarter of a mile head start.
Slaughter, the further away you ride, the further you're going to bounce on the way back to town. I'm not warning you again. If I bulldog you off that horse of yours, you're apt to break your neck. All right. Here's your lead back with interest.
Get up there, boy. Come on. Get alongside up. In there now where I can get my arm around that. Doggone you, Slaughter. Am I going to have to break your arm?
Stop, Remington. Oh, let go. You got me. I quit.
I
quit.
All right, then. Come on. Get up. Yeah, and start walking. It's a long trip back to Dos Rios and to jail.
blame you, Chad. Here you had us thinking you were a bigger crook than Slaughter. And all the time you were doing it for our own good.
Yes, sirree. Just like a father with an unreasonable kid.
Yeah, spare the rod and spoil the child. That's Chad's motto.
What's your motto, Cherokee?
Well, I guess you might say it is spare the flask and spoil the drink. By the way, isn't it about time for a little libation right now?
From the way I look after Bulldog and Slaughter off his horse, it's about time for me to take a bath and put on some clean clothes.
Well, it's not premature to thank you now, Chad. Except I don't know how I ever can. Enough.
You go talking to that young sprat like that, sir, and he'll go getting a swell head. Not that he don't deserve one, though. That little idea of his of making the boys trail their cattle certainly squeezed Slaughter into pulling one crime he hadn't figured on.
Yes, all right, Sheriff. And in honor of my dear friend's talents, I suggest someone buy me a little shot of something good so I can propose a toast to it. Besides, my knees have to stop shaking yet.
Well, my knee isn't shaking, Cherokee, and it's strong enough to turn you over it and beat a little genuine Indian tune on your tom-tom.
Go, Chad! If you turn me over your knee, not only would you break my spirit, but you'd bust a flask full of the finest Cherokee Indian rattlesnake oil that ever whetted a man's whistle. I'm going home.
Frontier Town, starring Tex Chandler, is a Bruce Ells production. Supervision by Joel Murcott. Story and direction by Paul Franklin. Music written and played by Ivan Ditmars. Be sure to be with us again, same time next week, for another fine action-adventure story with your favorite young Western star, Tex Chandler. This is Bill Foreman telling you that Frontier Town came to you from Hollywood.
October 24th, 1952, Frontier Town on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Part 8 of the 9-part Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story, The Phantom Chase Matter, October 24th, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar. Boy genius.
Oh, look, Johnny, don't blame yourself.
We come here to Lagos Island to pick up Tom Chase, so what happens? He circles around behind us, grabs a boat, and takes off.
But how could you help it?
I should have figured what he was up to. He was all alone here on the island, no way to get off. So we obligingly show up in a boat. He pins us down in the underbrush with a few wild shots while he works his way around to the boat. Well, one thing I got to admit, Lola, your husband's no dummy.
Please, Johnny, I'd just as soon not be reminded of Tom's cleverness. Embezzlement, murder, escape. If that's cleverness, I don't want any part of it. Oh, if he'd only turn himself in.
Oh, fat chance of that.
Maybe if he goes back to Barbados, we can find him there and persuade him.
You're overlooking one small detail, Lola.
Huh?
You and I are now in the same spot Tom Chase was. We're alone on this island, and there's no way off.
Tonight, and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Lagos Island, 3 hours by boat from Barbados in the British West Indies. To the Home Office, Universal Adjustment Bureau, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, The Phantom Chase Matter. Expense account continued. I was getting nowhere. I've been on the trail of Tom Chase ever since he'd embezzled $120,000 from his New York investment firm and jumped bail. First to New Orleans. There, a man named Freddie Quintana had offered to deliver Chase for a price. But Quintana had wound up dead in an alley. Obviously, Tom Chase didn't want to be delivered. I'd finally tracked him to Barbados and found a fisherman who told me he'd brought Chase here to Lagos Island. Chase's wife, Lola, had flown to Barbados and insisted on coming with me to the island, hoping she could convince her husband to turn himself in. But instead, Chase had maneuvered us away from the boat I'd rented and had taken off in it. And now, Lola and I were out in the middle of nowhere. But really nowhere.
What are we going to do, Johnny?
Now, that's a good question, Lola. Police Inspector Whitsett back at Barbados told me that nobody comes near Lagos Island anymore, not even fishermen. We may be here quite a while.
But We don't even have any food.
Well, that abandoned house across the island where your husband was hiding, could be there's food in it that he brought.
Would you do me a favor, Johnny?
And what is it?
I'd just as soon you didn't keep calling Tom my husband.
He is, isn't he?
Legally, yes. When I found out he wasn't traveling alone, that it was a woman who arranged his hiding place in New Orleans, I guess I just quit thinking of him as my husband.
Oh, how do you think of him now?
As a confused animal on the run.
He doesn't seem very confused to me. One thing I don't get, though.
What's that?
Well, that night in Barbados, before you arrived, when Chase slugged me over the head in that waterfront warehouse, why didn't he finish me off then? He had a chance to take me off his trail for keeps. And today, here on the island, those shots of his were plenty wild.
Johnny, I keep telling you, Tom is no killer.
Look, why don't you...
I know he's an embezzler running away from the law, but I can't believe he killed that man Quintana in New Orleans.
Can't believe or won't believe.
Won't believe, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to build a fire here on the beach. It's just possible a boat might pass near enough to the island to see it.
It's funny.
Hmm?
The way things work out.
Oh?
The timing's always so bad.
What do you mean?
Oh, you and me here. Under other circumstances, I don't really think I'd mind being here with you at all, Johnny.
I think I'd better start building that fire. We collected a pile of driftwood and brush and touched a match to it. Then we went across the island to the house where Chase had been hiding out. It was a pretty rickety affair, but he left some food. After we'd eaten, we went back and built the fire higher. Then we waited. The hours dragged by, and I was sure Chase was getting farther and farther from me all the time. But there was nothing I could do about it. Finally, I guess I dozed off.
Johnny.
What is it? What?
Look, coming around the point out there.
Huh? A boat.
Come on. Let's get out where they can see
Not
us.
so fast, Laura.
What's the matter?
That could be the fisherman who brought Chase here. If he's working with Chase, maybe he's coming here to try and finish us off.
Johnny, do you
Oh,
think...
hey, wait. That's a police boat. Yeah, it's Inspector Whitson.
Oh, thank heaven.
Come on. Hi, Inspector.
Yes, Inspector, yes.
Yeah, aside from getting shot at a couple of times.
Had a bit of a go, eh?
Pretty one-sided go. Oh, Inspector, you're the most beautiful sight we've seen all day.
Oh, well, thanks, old man. When I couldn't raise you by radio, I decided to come and have a look-see. Where's Trace?
Who knows? He pinned us down in the underbrush with a few shots while he circled around behind us and took off on the boat.
I see. I wonder.
What?
About halfway here, I saw a boat in the distance. It was too far away for me to see who was in it.
Which way was it heading?
Back towards Barbados.
Then let's get this boat cranked up, Inspector. Maybe we've got a chance after all.
I imagine Barbados looks pretty good again to you two.
It certainly does, Inspector.
Yeah, until you came along, it looked like we were going to turn out to be Lagos Island's oldest citizens.
Here we are. Incidentally, Mr. Dollar, do you know a chap named George Everson?
Yeah, sure. He's the senior partner of the firm Chase embezzled the money from in New York.
He's an old friend, Inspector. Why?
Well, he dropped in on me just before I shoved off.
What?
Said he'd wait for you at your hotel.
George here in Barbados?
Well, I phoned him earlier, and he said he was going to catch the first plane he could and come down here.
But why?
Mainly to take you back to New York.
Now, Johnny, we've been all over that.
Yes, and I still think you ought to... Hey, hold it.
What's the matter?
That boat on the other side of the pier, tied up there.
It's the boat we went to the island in.
Yeah, sure. So Chase did come back to Barbados.
Good. I'll have the airlines and steamships watched, and I'll get word to the fishing and charter boats. If Chase is there, I think we can keep him bottled up.
Inspector Whitsett took off to cover all the bases, and I took Lola back to her hotel. When I got to mine, George Everson was waiting for me. I took him to my room.
Any luck on Lagos Island, Mr. Dollar?
Oh, yeah. All of it bad.
You're sure it's really Chase you've been trailing?
All the way. Freddie Quintana in New Orleans stole a letter from him, one that he'd started to Lola. It matched the sample of Chase's writing you gave me in New York. And when he grabbed our boat on Lagos Island, Lola got a look at him and recognized him.
How's Lola holding up under all this?
Oh, I don't know. She says she's all over being hurt, that when she found out there was another woman involved, it killed her feeling for Chase.
I'm not so sure of that, Mr. Dollar.
Neither am I.
Lola was completely devoted to Tom. She was badly hurt by his embezzlement, and I think she's still being hurt.
Well, in any case, I'd feel a lot better if she'd clear out.
Well, as you know, I came down here to take her back, but on the way, I started thinking about it.
Oh?
As long as she is here, perhaps she could be a big help to us.
How so?
Well, I still think Tom Chase would listen to Lola, even if he wouldn't listen to anyone else. Nobody could change that much.
I wouldn't count on that, Mr. Everson.
Yeah, well, still, it's worth a try. Now, if it could only work out so that Lola could talk to Tom, or better yet, if Lola and I both could talk to him.
Well, what would you say to him?
I don't know what Lola would say, but for me, I'd put it to him that his only hope of straightening himself out is to turn himself in and turn over whatever the embezzled money is left.
Oh, look,
Why, I'd even go so far as to guarantee eventual restitution to our investors of whatever amount he's already spent. I know it'd take time.
Well, that's pretty generous of you, Mr. Everson, but I'm afraid you're a little too late.
Why?
In the first place, Tom Chase obviously is not going to turn himself in. He's had plenty of chances to up to now, and he hasn't exactly jumped at them.
But if
I think I think he's got a good reason for not turning himself in. It's better than an even chance he's the one who knocked off Freddie Quintana in New Orleans.
The man who offered to turn Tom over to you for a price?
That's the one. Oh, no, Mr. Everson. At this point, it looks like there's only one way for me to get Tom Chase, and that's to track him down and drag him in. Expense account, item 27, $1.20 American. Cab fare from my hotel to Colonial Police Headquarters. To check with Inspector Whitsett, who, fortunately for me, was being most cooperative.
Chase hasn't contacted any of the airlines or steamship lines. We're in touch with the charter and fishing boats. He hasn't approached any of them, so far as we know.
In other words, the chances are good that he's still here in Barbados.
That's right.
The question is, where?
Right again. Take a look at this map, and you'll see our problem. 170 square miles, more or less.
Yeah. He could be here in the city or out in the sticks somewhere.
Or over here in the Mirasol Beach area. I somehow doubt that, though.
Why?
Well, it's a pretty fashionable spot. Now, I imagine Chase would try to be as inconspicuous as possible.
Yeah. So he's probably hiding out in the city here.
Well, there are scores of hotels and rooming houses. I don't have enough men to... Oh, excuse me. What's that here? Yes? Oh, what's the address? Oh, thanks, old boy. Yeah. Things are looking up, Mr. Dollar.
Oh?
Yes, a man answering Chase's general description just checked in at a hotel out in the north part of the city. That's the room at the end of the hall, Mr. Dollar.
Okay. Let's not be polite, Inspector. Let's use the passkey the clerk gave us and barge right in.
Right.
Okay.
Ah. Empty.
How about that closet?
Nothing.
Window's open and there's a fire escape.
Well, he apparently left in a hurry. You see there? There's clothes on the chair.
Yeah, that jacket. It looks like the one he was wearing when he swiped my boat on Logos Island.
Pity we just missed him.
Inspector, I've been just missing him for the last 10 days, and believe me, I'm getting tired of it.
Probably only by a few minutes, too.
Sure, just a few minutes. But it might as well be a year. I went back to my hotel. I was beat. Being always one jump behind Tom Chase was getting on my nerves. Sure, he was still in Barbados, but where? At the rate I was going, catching him was turning into a full-time career. A career I was getting fed up with. Then, as I entered my room, I heard a slight movement behind me, and I realized all of a sudden that I wasn't alone.
Don't turn around, Dollar.
What?
Hold it very still.
Okay. Look, I can save you some time. If it's my gun you're looking for, it's in the shoulder holster left side.
No, thanks.
You know, I just had a real wild idea.
I said don't turn around and keep your hands in sight.
Okay. My wild idea is that you're Tom Chase.
Yeah. I'm Tom Chase.
Mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Why not?
Why did you do it? The embezzlement. Was it because of a woman?
It was a woman.
Was?
It turned sour.
Oh, where is she?
It doesn't matter anymore.
And where's the money?
That doesn't matter either. You won't get it.
I see. Next question. Why did you come here to my room, Chase?
I've tried every trick I know to shake you, Dollar. None of them's worked. You've kept on coming. I can't stand it anymore. I'm sick of running.
Give yourself up, Chase.
It's too late for that. No, there's another way. I've got to take you off my trail once and for all.
Now, wait a minute, look.
Sorry, but that's the way it has to be. Dollar, this is the end of the line for you.
Now, here's our star to tell you about the final episode of this story.
Tomorrow, the payoff. But who gets paid off, and how, and why? Well, the answers to those questions surprise me plenty, and maybe they will you, too. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Robert Wright, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us for the final episode of this story on Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
From October 24th, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. If you have a moment, visit my webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand to learn more about classic radio collecting. You can contact me there. You can find our social media links. There's a list of places you can download our shows from. You can also buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money helps us expand our classic radio collection. You can also learn how to build a classic radio collection of your own. That's all at our webpage, classicradio.stream. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Please thank this station, support their advertisers, and tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.